Thank you so much, Kevin, for such a nice introduction, and thank the Allen Museum who invited me to giving me this opportunity. This morning, I walked into this building. I was really admired uh, every detail of the architecture and through the gallery, enjoying so many beautiful things. I feel such a fortune and honor to have my piece join the collection with others. Um, and while we were walking through this show, I noticed a couple of pieces of Cultural Revolution painting included in this show. Was the title was "Criticize Confucius." Here is such an interesting thing. I picked Confucius' words as the title of my talk. Confucius lived in 2,500 years ago, so the words he said was from 25 years ago, and during this period, afterwards until today, I think all over the world, especially in China, people use this quote very often to teach young kids how to become a good person, become a gentleman. But for me, it's the same as doing art. In this museum, every pieces of art I looked from thousands years BC to today. Every single artist who create those pieces, we have the same question in our mind. What is enough when you create art? You work on what is enough, what is just right. There you stop. This piece called finished. So I would just use this Confucius quote to talk about my experience with art. Since I have so many topics and I loaded with images to cover my weakness with my language, so I break it to several parts. First, back to the roots, calligraphy. We often say calligraphy and painting as one, which is many different angles to see it. The early Chinese character was just copying what you see in the nature. For example, the wood, and you would have branches on the top, the roots going to the earth, create a character wood, and water, you would have a waving strokes to show the water, and the mountain would show the peaks. So that's the earliest Chinese character. This two character, qixia, is resting in the colorful clouds in the sunset. So you see the first character, on that side is a wood, on the left side. The right side is a bird nest. That means the bird in the evening would go into the wood on the branches, have that nest to rest. So the two words, resting in the colored clouds. So here I made a list of the development of a Chinese character from as early as 1600 BC to 220 to 420. That's the Chinese character, different style of writing developed script, different scripts developed through those years. After 420, basically we have all different scripts, just the personal different, just playing different style. But I don't want to get into the calligraphy history. What I want to show, my purpose is you from the beginning to the end, each period of time, we use brush almost the same, but the stroke come out very differently. That means it require you use the brush with different technique, with the pressure, with the control very differently. So as traditional Chinese tradition, when a child, you can hold chopsticks, then you start using brush to practice calligraphy. Through the practice calligraphy, that's the best way to learn understanding the brush stroke. So I always feel bad. I don't have the talent to play music. I can't play any instrument. But this is my instrument from big to small, which, the small brushes, the sound like violin, the small high sound. The big brush is very bold stroke, feel like bass for me. So this is, I pick a few from a different period of time I practice calligraphy. I started from 6, 7 years old until today. I'm 60, it's over 50 years of practice. So that's through this, you really learn how to use brush. You see, we judge Chinese painting, especially the classic Chinese painting. It's not only see the whole painting, the composition, it's you look into the painting, each stroke, it's a beauty because of the practice of the calligraphy. Some way, a lot of Chinese painting, you say the inscription, the artist to put on their name, they say 写 is writing, not say paint. It's not to say Mansheng Wang paint. I say Mansheng Wang write. Because of we really used to write lots of characters and use the brush the way also into painting. So that's also say calligraphy and painting as one, another way to explain. So ink and the brush, it's a very simple media, and the rice paper is very simple media, but also very elegant, very, very interesting, simple and elegant. You see this, I use the same paper, same ink, just add different amount of water to create different color, different texture, different character. So I just pick 3. You can see through the calligraphy, you can really understand the material you are using, really understand the paper. So I like to use the newspaper to practice calligraphy. That's one thing because I grew up during the Cultural Revolution. Everything is short supply. We can't even find a newspaper that time. So after I moved to the United States, my wife would read the New York Times every day, every single day. I just see how big the pile of newspaper come in on the weekend. It's a huge. like several pounds of paper. I was just thinking, how many people could go through those paper? Some people just look at the title, then throw into the garbage. So I said that's such a waste from my experience. So I thought I would use it to practice calligraphy. So I use it every day to select some paper, less image to. So you can see the quote on the New York Times every day would be all the news that fit to print. So I thought, okay, after years I used this New York Times, I had the first show at Columbia University in their East Asia library with my New York Times calligraphy. I can see, I watch the audience, come in. The English reader, they just naturally walk closer to see what's in the background, what is the news, what the date is. So I thought, oh, that's very interesting to this material carry on such information, news for people to discover after years. So you can see the stock market and the world, the puzzle, the crossword puzzle, and and also you have this materials you can write as big as you want. You don't need to worry about I used up my supply. So that way really loose up my mind and my muscle. So I can, once a while, I would write very large. So this is from a show last year at Hammond Museum in New York. So I had an installation of my New York Times calligraphy, which is each single full sheet of paper, one character, like that size. So I put them together. It's a building a web. The stroke moving around, it's like a web. And of course, it's related with the classic text. So here also, people talk about Chinese calligraphy, judge Chinese calligraphy, always using something from the nature. This is on my hiking. I noticed a piece of rotten wood because of the worm traveling, chewing for years to create this piece. So we also describe some of the masterpiece with the worm eating or the leaking house you see on the wall left a mark after the rain for years. Those marks are from the nature create. We talk about the nature and the refinement. That part you always want to include. Otherwise, you would just completely human made up. It would be too weak. You want to have that kind of natural texture and the line. And to show you the next piece, where you compare this one and the last piece, the worm mark showing through. So this is a seal style, which is, the Qing Shi Huang, the first emperor period of time, this kind of script. But it's really related with the nature. So here, talk about landscape. The Song Dynasty masters said the mountain, they are a huge thing. So talk about landscape. When we go into the mountain, I said, today I compared the Western way and the Chinese landscape. we're in the storage room to look at some of the Chinese classic masterpiece. I saying, one piece, Li Liufang is right on the boat, traveling on the boat. He's painting on the boat on this golden paper, but he painted a snow landscape with snow. Actually, that's before snow come down and just feel the weather would go into snow. But on the boat, you look at the bank. The boat is moving. You have to capture something on the bank very quickly. So, this group of rock, kind of interesting. Oh, that's tree, the group tree, interesting. While you are painting this group of tree, the boat is already move on. So it's not like when I paint the grass, when the sun shift 2 hours later, he has to change another canvas. So he catch the light, the same light. But the Chinese artist is not doing that, just to remember it on the hiking. On the hiking, this part interests me. I saved in my mind. And that part I interested in saved in my mind. When I got back to home, I put all my favorite parts of the landscape to one painting. It's compressed landscape. That's why some of the Chinese painting, you say, oh, I can't believe it. You have that kind of view. So the same thing, Li Liufang painted on the boat. You can't capture one still image on the bank. It's memory. Okay, 1 minute, I have to work this. Then you already passed a couple miles, you capture another piece, your favorite part. So you put together this long hand scroll. That's really earliest impression them, really from your memory. So when I walk into the mountain, we all probably the same. Notice when you get to a waterfall. So, I have to stop here. I wash my face, I drink a little bit of water from there. So that's what my favorite part. So when I and my wife like to hike in the hot day, in the Yosemite, it gets really hot. When you climb to the top, after 6 hours, you jump into the waterfall, the creek, you drink, you take a shower, a bath, soak to get down your temperature. So I create this 60 or maybe it was way over 100 pieces of waterfall is the experience from traveling into the mountain at the Adirondack in New York and the Yosemite all over the place, visit the waterfall. This is use a lot of water, you can see. Also looking for the balance. The different handmade paper, the fiber is different. So react with the ink and the water very differently. So you have to control which area you want to use the water. Actually, the water guides the ink direction to which direction to run. So you wet certain part, then you put down the ink just naturally follow the watermark. So the light, the moisture, the dryness, and also the stroke, the brush stroke. So this is Chinese always say we learn the art, there's 3 ways, 3 different ways. This is first is learning from the nature. You look at the water and the rock, you said, I really love the combination of the water and the rock. There are different texture, totally different way to living or to move. See, the water smooth like soap. Under the light, you can see shining through. And the rock, for millions of years there, they are rough. They're really tough. I love the combination. So then another way learn is 师古人 means from the old master. You study the old master's work. So this group I selected is from, I copying the 17th century master Gongxian, who's from the Nanjing area. There's some beautiful mountains. He just live in there. So he really lives there. It's different from a painter. You go once a while, you go into the mountain to have a hike. He lives there, morning, night, raining day, snowing day, you all feel it. So that's why he's painting the landscape. It's great. So I study you study the stroke, the composition, how do you control your brush, use your calligraphy technique into the landscape. The next few pieces I want very quickly to go through is, many art students study. This is a masterpiece you have to study if you study Chinese painting. This one is a Guoxi, early spring. I never really copied those pieces. Those are giant pieces from a Taipei Palace Museum. But I do remember, I feel it. I remember the spirit. So this is when I put together this PPT, I compare my work and the past masterpiece. There's some similar spirit, which is I from my memory, when I paint, I never have a masterpiece on side of me, just in my memory, in my head. So this is the piece right now in the gallery. This is really honored to join this collection. While I was working on this piece, what's in my mind is that piece was the masterpiece by Li Cheng, was in Ansis collection. I work on this piece. I was thinking about that piece in my mind. Was Li Tang, also a Song Dynasty master, also in Taipei. And when I work on this piece, which is one piece from a whole set of album. But I was thinking about Huang Gongwang, the 14th, 13th, 14th century master, is, the Snow Peak. And the third source to study, to learn, is from yourself. Your experience to look at the nature and your imagination. So your education, your knowledge, and everything. So this piece tell you this is playing with moonlight on stones. So I really, in the quiet night, the moon shining on the stones. So when Kevin introduced me, I was talk about the black walnut ink. In this landscape, I used the brown is all from a black walnut tree, the fruit. I made the ink from the fruit. Every fall, I would make some to keep in the jar. It's like a wine. Stay longer, it's get a little darker and thicker, the color. So I create this piece with the walnut ink. So I call it remaining snow. The snow is not add on later, is the paper color. So I leave it to as a snow. So this part, breaking a reed for a brush. This is I live I lived in New York, the Hudson Valley for 25 years, more than 25 years. So everything on the river or on the both sides of the river, I would really pay a lot of attention. So in I joined the co-op gallery cross the river from us in Piermont, a small town called Piermont. Outside of our gallery in the Hudson River, there's like a couple of hundred acres of reed marsh growing. When I sit in the gallery during my solo show, I just watch it in the wind. It's like dancing brushes. So beautiful. I often take a kayak to go through, then get to Hudson River from the creek. So one day I was thinking, oh, I really love to use that as a brush. So here I use it to give it a try. So I break the reed, shape it, make it, trim it a little bit to make it a little firm to as a brush to paint this ancient pine tree. Because it's different from the fine brush manufactured, the roughness, it's really wonderful to create the surface of a rock or the old tree trunk. So this is another example. The real brush, you can't create this kind of texture and the fine line. So the materials, people ask me, what is the best brush or what is the best paper, handmade paper? You go to Beijing, the market, you can find hundreds of different kind of handmade paper. I said that there's no best. The best is from you. How do you find the best way to use it? That kind of paper become the best. So this is at my hometown, Shanxi Museum. In 2014, I had a solo show. I had more than 20 pieces of large ancient pine trees created by using the reed. This is from Hammond Museum last year. The ancient tree with the ancient vine. I love the vine, the twist. It's like a cursive style of calligraphy. This is also the reed painting of a vine. I wrote in, say, Mansheng Wang used the reed brush. This is a show at the Hong Kong Art Center, one of my pieces. This is actually this twist, like the Chinese character, ancient character, clouds. It's like twisting. So here I had a group, I pick a group of fan painting created during the pandemic. The pandemic hit us really badly for 3 years now. Many people think it's really, really terrible. But as a painter, I think in some way, really slow us down a lot and make us think and make us review everything, review your life, really review your relationship with friends and family, everything. So for me, you're not able to, physically travel to Kyoto, but I could think, I could review the pictures I took there, review my memory. So I started thinking, I create this small image. The form I pick is from the classic painting from the Song Dynasty, the high peak of Chinese art that period of time. I was just thinking, this is the first time I use this form. This is all my own hand cut out. I pick the masterpiece from Taipei Gugong, the Old Palace Museum, and from the Beijing Palace Museum, the pieces of Song Dynasty masterpiece. I measured them exactly the same measurement. So you see, the curve, it's not perfectly round. That's the Song people pick that. So it reminded me the Song ceramic. Why you make the ceramic such a curve, not this curve, it's that curve. It's about, the Song people, your education, you thought that's the most beautiful. So I use that as a format. I did probably 100 pieces of painting, different subject, but it's all related to the past of my travel. I was telling Kevin today, I said, everywhere I go, I really look at things. I really try to remember the favorite thing on this trip. Someday it would appear in my painting, which is this. I traveled to Japan 3 trips in 2015, 2016, which I have lots of favorite thing. But until 2021, it's come out from this set. And also Lotus is one of my favorite subject, which I use this kind of thing to. It's like this process create you from the whole sheet of paper. How do you cut out? Then you pick one, decided which shape of fan shape you wanted to use, paint what kind of subject. That's a very interesting choice, and the process is a very calm and comforting. In this special time, you would forgot the worries. The 5 pine trees. And the Buddhist sculpture, I'm trying to see this bronze Buddhist sculpture. If in this shape of fan, what it would look like. And the plum blossom and the horse, which yesterday we talked a lot about horses, which is the horse I painted there. and the song style of a botanical subject. So which this piece, I also very honored to join Allen Memorial Museum, which is Luo Han, the Buddhist subject, paintings, art subject, but it's a Luo Han sewing a mask. So which is from my own experience. When the pandemic broke up, COVID broke up first, a year almost, we're struggling with the question of masks. Do you want to wear a mask or not wear a mask? And do you have a supply? You not have enough supply. So I thought as artists in this pandemic, first we can't buy masks, we can't find. So I started sewing masks for my family, for myself. I thought I needed some very stylish mask. So I picked interesting fabric to sew. Because we don't have a sewing machine, everything is hand sewed, every stitch. So it would take me like a half day to finish one. So as I was debating, should I spend all this time to sewing this mask? There's like weeks I spent for sewing mask. But I said, since the whole country is debating with the mask, it's an important thing to do. I'm not wasting my time. But I think, the Luo Han is supposed to be helping people in the world. I think if there's a real Luo Han, he would sew a mask too. So I did this painting. It is something reflect my own experience. So then here's the lotus, which Kevin mentioned at Kaikodo. This is that piece he saw at the gallery, which when I first time painted lotus, I was like 7, 8 years old during the Cultural Revolution in this coal mine city, very dry and dirty. You don't have much books to read. I never seen lotus before. One day I went to the park just by myself. Suddenly find this wild little pond with a lotus come out. One lotus flower blooming. I was so shocked. I said, this is the most beautiful thing I have seen in my life, my short life, 8 years old. So I run home to brought pencil and paper, started drawing. This I thought nobody discovered, only me saw this. So that's the first of my lotus painting I did. After that, this 50 years I've been doing it in many different forms, in many series. So this is one. There's a beautiful poem. So in Jiangnan, someone could pick lotus. The leaves are large and round, fish playing among the leaves. The fish suddenly go to the east. They suddenly move to the west. Suddenly they move to the south. Suddenly move to the north. It's a folk song from 2,000 years ago. I thought it's one of the most beautiful Chinese poem in the Chinese history. It's simple, but what the judgment come out from is through the long history, human's history, we filled with war and filled with natural disaster. Only the short moment is peaceful. If a young lady going to the lotus pond to pick up a lotus, no worry about bombing coming down, which this is 1 year, the Ukraine war. And the other day I saw a picture in the shelter. There's so many girls sleep on the floor with avoid the bombing today. So you can really, from that image, you can really understand this is a really treasure moment and the most beautiful poem in the history, which I gave my daughter name, Lotus Maid, which is I wish she would live in this peaceful moment in human history. No war, no worries. So I shared the passion with my daughter even she was born. So in 2021, I started, really worrisome, not only because the COVID crossed the whole world. Every country is locked down to avoid other people come in and complaining each other. And the wildfire in California, in Australia, and in the Amazon area destroyed countless trees and animals. So I stayed at home. I started paint this long hand squirrel, which is 28 feet long. So just thinking about it, in the Chinese art history, so many artists create recluse, the subject of recluse, retreat to the mountain, a beautiful landscape, and nobody could touch me. So that's often happened because you can't get that in the real life, real society. It's such a mess. You want to create somewhere I could hide, I could live. So which here, I created my own world, which me and my daughter Chloe on the boat on the right side corner among the lotus, we're picking lotus. And in the woods, the beautiful woods, it's my studio and home. I call it Hut for Three. Surrounding with the waterfall and behind, and the mountain cliff, and facing this creek, which guide you to open water with miles of lotus. Then from the open water, come to the land, which while I was working on this piece, all my experience, all the trips to visit lotus ponds around the world, in China, in Taiwan, in Japan, in the US, all come together, appeared in my head. So I put them together and also include the masterpiece in Chinese art history, Bada Shanren, which he has a very long hand squirrel come to New York, China Society, China Institute, end of this March, started the show. That's Bada Shanren's masterpiece, the best piece. It's called Heshanghua, the flowers on the river. So, of course, it reminded me that, and while I was creating this piece. So just reflecting the wildfire in the world that in the 2021, and also think about any reason to cut down the trees. In our society, we are not allowed a tree grow over 100 years. So, but under my brush, I let them grow. Old and healthy. So then I write down the inscription. It's my story. From the summer through the autumn, I finished this 28 feet long hand scroll. So called the Lotus in Closed Section. That's my talk for today. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for a really interesting talk, and I love your work. So interesting. I am curious about scale. I can tell some of the sizes from like long hand scrolls and things. I feel like in the very beginning, you were showing us a lot of small scale things, or at least not the size of like a gouache painting or the sort of traditional paintings. And that I'm wondering whether or not you choose scale as a means of allowing your experiments with ink and different types of water um, to sort of contain those experiments. Even,
Sorry, I can't.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I was really struck by um, a lot of things through, mostly to the point of the pandemic. You have some medium-sized to sort of smaller scale works, and even the ones that you quote, Guoxi or Huang Wang or Li Cheng, you seem to quote details, and it seems like that gives your work a kind of dense overlay. And I feel like that makes some of your images have a really interesting kind of perspective. And I'm just curious if you think consciously about these or like what that, like I'm thinking back to your first quote, art and artlessness, and about creativity or sort of art and humanness encroaching on nature. And I'm just wondering if there is something in there that you're doing consciously that there's a visualization of that, it seems. So I'm just, yeah.
Yes, the scale of the painting, it's most most of the pieces are smaller than the masterpiece we see on the left. Those Northern Stone masterpiece, they're quite large. Some pieces like 2 meters tall, maybe like that wide. My landscape still have a limit to create that large piece, but I can create like 4 feet that size. I did some are most of the pieces I showed you of my own work is full image. Only the first piece, the waterfall, was a guoxi. The first piece was detail because I use guoxi's detail and my painting detail to compare. So that's the scale. Of course, the fan painting is quite small. Um, yeah, the lotus painting and the landscape used the walnut ink, which is uh, pretty big, over 2 meters wide. Uh, and the art and artlessness, I think, just what I describe to think. Um, you know, in Chinese character, we say 文质彬彬. Wen, the original meaning is 花纹 is a decoration. 直 is no decoration, just that you find maybe from the nature or a piece of clay or rock or whatever. So the decoration, how much you want to put on on you. For example, a lady wants to do makeup. How much you want to make up your face? Your naturally is look like this. When I put on lipsticks, I put on, eyebrow darker, make it darker, maybe make my eye circle darker. How much you want to put on? How much people look at you, feel comfortable is the balance. I think for artwork, also like that. Also, Confucius said, 绘事后素 is someone started painting. The first thing, you need a blank space. For me, I was thinking when I used the walnut ink, black walnut ink, when the black walnut drop from 20 feet tall on the ground, make a brown mark, stand there for 2 years. Rain couldn't wash off. So people would complaining, say, oh, I want to cut down this tree because it's make a mess. Painting, what is the painting? You have a blank, just to make a mess on that blank. But with a very elegant way to make a mess. So that's talk about art and artless. That's the meaning for me. Just how do you make this mess? How much the makeup you want to make? What is enough? Do I put an earring? Do I put a nose? I put, anything. People just add on more and more. We have a different knowledge. We have different education. Seems we see things differently. So I have my own way to control my action when I paint. I say, okay, when I should stop. When my daughter was in the preschool, my wife had to work. I pick her up every day. When she was at school, I was working on pieces, but I couldn't stop. I said, is this piece of work finished? Okay. After I pick my daughter up, come to the home, first thing I asked her to look at my painting. I asked her, do you think this is enough or should I work on more? Sometimes she said, stop there. So that's the judgment, art and artlessness.
This is a technical question. When you are painting on paper, you have this contact with it, and then the paper gets a little rough, and you feel it, and you work, and then suddenly, or eventually, it turns into these beautifully, tautly stretched, smooth paintings. How are your paintings mounted to smooth them out like this?
Yeah, this is the problem we always facing when you use handmade paper, because the handmade paper is very sensitive, very easy to get it wrinkled up, especially you use so much of water and so many times to paint over it. But there's the traditional way to treat it, which is that's supposed to be the I think it's like we really should treasure this kind of knowledge is mounting. Mounting is you put the painting face on the table. You wet it with the very loose paste made of wheat flour. So there's a special way to make those pastes. So you wet it just to basically give it the best. Stretch out all the wrinkles. Then you put another sheet of rice paper on the back. Then you put the glue on the edge, put on the wall. Slowly, slowly let it dry. For several days on the wall, because from wet to dry, the paper is shrinking. Stretch out all the wrinkles. Then you come out so smooth and beautiful. We wish we can do our wrinkles like that.
I have a question about the black walnut ink. The way that you layer the black walnut ink in with your other pigments and stuff gives, to my eye, it looks sometimes like the mountains are corroding almost. So, there's corroding, like rusting almost. So it's not just like a weathered mountain. It actually seems like the mountain's disintegrating to me sometimes. Well, even in the one that's in this exhibition. So just wonder if that was something you thought about, because then for me, the mountain becomes a symbol of fragility rather than of sort of timelessness and strength. And I wonder if that's something you've thought about or.
When I work on landscape, I always take what the accident gave to me. For example, I first process is wet the paper sometime, or I use a very thin cardboard. So I maybe put the color on the plastic or whatever. So I dip my paper into the color. The color is already mixed. Some areas more water, sometimes is more dry. So I already had I had plan in my head. So I spray the color and the water, put on the surface. I get an abstract image. So from the first planning, after do this kind of like a monotype print, to get on this a rough abstract image, it has different things from first planning. So then I would study it very carefully, what I see from this abstract. So some of the blank, nothing get on, would be the snow. That's the back color of the paper. So that's why I call it the remaining snow. I was leaving the blank, not touch it. It would just become a natural mountain with your range, right? So that's why, so I work around that. Sometimes the accident, the color mixing in that area, the dry and the water, they join together. Some part is amazing. I want to keep that to be the center of my painting. I work around it to create this landscape, which is from a different sources, like my real experience, travel in mountain to see amazing mountains. I have been travel to a lot of places in the world, to the famous mountain. What captured me? What really moved me the most? That's the part. Another thing is my imagination. We're talking about the 16th century Wu Bing, the master landscape. His landscape is unreal. It's mostly from his imagination. Of course, his hometown is Wuyishan in Fujian province. The mountain form it's amazing. If you don't go there, you don't believe that kind of mountain survived in the world. But he's painting even more extreme from his hometown landscape. So that's the other part, is just adding your imagination into with your experience.
Hi. Earlier you talked a bit about how the pandemic made you reevaluate your art and think about art as more of a refuge. So I was wondering if you've noticed a shift in the way that audiences perceive your art since the pandemic as well.
Sorry, what's the last?
I was wondering if you noticed a shift in how audiences perceive your art since the pandemic.
I worked very hard to prepare many exhibitions before the pandemic. Suddenly the pandemic hit, so many exhibitions be canceled or delayed. So for quite a while, there's no way to exchange with the viewers. You're just stay at home. First, you feel very frustrated because all those work you created for years, but the show didn't go on. So, but after like several months, I slowly calmed down. I said to myself, we have to accept this is the reality. We can't travel to anywhere. We can't go to the public space. The museums all closed. So I started, why I did those small painting is kind of react to the reality, the pandemic reality. Just say, okay, each day I work on this small fan painting. It's not only the beautiful thing, beautiful trees or garden. What I remembered, I worked in the garden as gardener for 25 years. So I have my own garden. I spend a lot of time there. I paint botanic subjects for many years. So if you can't go out, you work in your garden. So you notice all the details you didn't notice before. So just this is like comforting. I work on small scale of painting. Each day I can finish one little fan or 2 days. So that's changed my, what you say, when I was younger, I like to paint big, bold painting to draw more viewers. But during the pandemic, I work on those small fan painting. It's more like paint for myself. It's like, I can prepare, I finish my life tomorrow. I just comforting. I'm in the comforting kind of place. I don't want to chase something. I just think everybody facing this kind of situation. Our neighbor died. On our block, there's 20 some people get COVID, and that at the beginning was very serious. You have to send to the hospital. You can't talk to your family. We're all kind of nervous, but I think this kind of situation, we have to change our attitude to life. I thought each one, that's a big change. Just don't chase something famous or whatever. That's just enjoying your life with family.